In this lesson, we're going to cover vendor selection and monitoring. Now, in the modern business landscape, selecting the right vendor and ensuring their consistent alignment with your organization's objectives is truly paramount. This is a process that demands not just strategic foresight, but also an ongoing commitment to oversight. Whether you're sourcing raw materials for manufacturing or seeking a partner for a digital transformation, the principles of vendor selection and monitoring remain largely the same. Now, let's start out by looking at the vendor selection process that we can use to ensure we're selecting the right vendor to fit our organization's needs. After all, choosing a vendor is not that much different from hiring a new team member. You naturally want to ensure the candidate is not only competent, but also aligns with the organization's culture and goals. And this is where the concept of due diligence comes into play. Due diligence in vendor selection is a rigorous evaluation that goes beyond surface-level credentials and involves vetting a vendor's financial stability, operational history, client testimonials, and even their on-the-ground practices to ensure they're a good fit for your organization. Imagine sourcing a vendor for eco-friendly packaging. While conducting due diligence, you want to make sure you're not just checking their certification, but you also want to understand their waste management practices, material sourcing policies, and their overall impact on the environment, because that would affect their eco-friendliness or sustainability too. Now, as we dive deeper into due diligence, we must also be on the lookout for any conflicts of interest. A conflict of interest is going to arise when personal or financial relationships could potentially cloud the judgment of those involved in vendor selection. Suppose a key decision maker in the organization has a personal tie with the vendor you're considering. That relationship could, inadvertently or otherwise, bias their recommendations during the vendor selection process. Organizations should always be aware of such dynamics and strive to achieve transparency by requiring disclosures of potential conflicts or by excluding those parties who have a conflict of interest from the decision-making and selection process. Next, let's take a look at vendor questionnaires. Vendor questionnaires are comprehensive documents that potential vendors will fill out to offer insights into their operations, capabilities, and compliance. Imagine that you want to begin selecting a cloud service provider. A questionnaire might ask about their data redundancy measures, security protocols, uptime guarantees, and disaster recovery plans. These detailed responses will enable the organization to compare all those vendors on a standardized set of criteria and ensure a fair and informed decision-making process is being undertaken. Now, rules of engagement are another pivotal aspect that we should briefly cover. Rules of engagement are essentially the guidelines that dictate the terms of interaction between an organization and its potential vendors. They cover aspects like communication protocols, data sharing policies, and even negotiation boundaries. For instance, when evaluating a software development firm, the rules might specify the confidentiality of a shared project details and the permissible depth of technical evaluation. Such rules will ensure that the vendor interactions remain both productive and within the bounds of organizational and legal standards. Another example is one that I personally use at Dion Training because we do not accept any unsolicited proposals or emails from vendors. If a web developer, for example, sends us a proposal or email without us requesting it, we will simply delete it or we'll mark it as spam and move on. Our philosophy is that if we're looking for a vendor or supplier for a given project, we're going to post an announcement or we're going to post a request for proposal, and that is the only time we want to receive bids or proposals from a vendor. Otherwise, we're not in the market for a vendor, and the web developer who is cold emailing us is really wasting their time and ours, so we're just going to block them and move on. Now, let's assume you found the perfect vendor and you've made your selection. Your work is not done yet, though, because you still need to conduct continuous monitoring of that vendor to ensure that they are consistently meeting your organization's expectations. Over time, businesses evolve, market dynamics shift, and vendors undergo changes. So, monitoring is the mechanism we can use to ensure that your chosen vendor still aligns with your organizational needs and standards. Now, one of the keys to vendor monitoring really is performance reviews. These periodic evaluations allow vendors' deliverables to be assessed against the agreed-upon standards and objectives that you've outlined in your contract. Taking the earlier example of eco-friendly packaging vendors, we might have a performance review to analyze the quality of the packaging materials, as well as their adherence to delivery timelines and the environmental impact that's being measured over a given period of time. Feedback loops are another potent tool that's going to be used in vendor monitoring. Feedback loops involve two-way communication channels where both the organization and the vendor can share feedback with each other. The organization might provide input on the vendor's product quality, while the vendor could offer insights into improving the procurement process. These feedback loops, when effectively maintained, can also lead to more collaborative growth and refinement. So remember, when it comes to vendor selection and monitoring, it is vital to understand that these processes are not merely bureaucratic exercises, but they're also foundational to an organization's operational excellence and risk management process. Selecting the right vendor can increase the security of your organization, while selecting a bad vendor can become a huge operational bottleneck or security risk for the organization. Like all valuable relationships, the organization and vendor do create a bond that does require continuous nurturing, evaluation, and adaptation over time. In the modern interconnected world of business, it is not enough to simply choose the right partner, but you also need to grow and adapt with them as your organization continues to grow over time.